In the dwellings of Eldervale, battle ensues for dominance over 8 realms. Dragons, wizards, and warriors all are fighting for dominance while giant elemental monsters roam the land. Your goal is to guide 1 out of 16 unique factions to adventure, to battle, and to grow immensely in power, and ultimately dwell in Eldervale. Hi and welcome to yet another tutorial. I am so excited, amped, ecstatic to have you here with me learning yet another tutorial. So if you are new to the channel and you like the way I break down and showcase these games, it takes 2 seconds to subscribe so I can make more of these simplified tutorials for you. Plus you can pick up a brand new t-shirt and join the Wolf Pack on Patreon. All of that is linked below if that is something that you're interested in. All right, let's start first by setting up this massive game. So first, I am using the Legendary Edition in today's video, and we'll be setting up as if it is your first time playing. So just the base game with no optional modes or add-ons, and it's gonna be for a 2-player game. So you wanna start off by picking one of these 8-player trays. They each have their associated elemental card, or you can also deal these cards out randomly and then pick from there. Now everyone is going to have their own tray, and the lid is actually a 2-sided unique player board. So make sure you pick one side that you want to play with and then place it in front of you. Now next up, take these 3 units and put them on your board. This will be called the ready area. We're gonna play with my favorite element today, aka water, so the Atlanteans, and my favorite mood, dark, so with the shadow demons. Then roll some dice in order to determine starting player. The highest number is gonna go first, and play is going to continue clockwise from there. Now in your player tray, you want to grab the octahedral scoring marker from the bottom right corner of your tray and put it on the victory point track of the scoreboard on the number that matches your turn orders. So if the Atlanteans are going first, then they're gonna start with 1 point. Shadow demons will follow right after, so they will start off with 2 points. Now, regardless of how many people you're playing with, you're going to incorporate 2 more elements into the game, which means with 2 people for this setup, we'll be using a total of 4 elements. For each element being used, you'll need the corresponding elemental realm, which are their 3 tiles, 1 monster card, and their matching mini. They also get 1 orb. Now, since I am adding in fire, and I'm also adding in order, here are all the pieces that I would need for each faction. Next up, the dungeon tray. So take out the doorway card of each element that you're using, shuffle the bottom deck, and then you want to put the doorway card face up on top of the cards that you just shuffled. Now if you want to, you can also mix up the tokens right beneath each doorway as well. Now we're gonna build up this land called Eldervale. Go ahead and shuffle all of the elemental tiles you're using in this game in order to make the elemental realm stack. Draw 5 of those tiles, and again, since it is a 2-player game, if you happen to draw more than 1 lair tile, you can tell it's a lair actually because there's a monster skull icon in the middle. Put every lair that you drew after the first one at the bottom of the realm stack, so you only have 1 lair max on your starting map. Okay, so with those 5 tiles that you just drew, shuffle those together with the ruins, and then you want to randomly arrange those tiles face up in the setup that I'm showing right here. Then reshuffle the realm stack and place it face down in the discard tray. And the setup is almost done. So you want to also put a stack of 3 treasure tokens on each elemental realm. So if I have a fire realm here with 1 space for treasure tokens, I'll go ahead and put a face up stack of 3 right there. This dark tile has 2 spaces, so I'll put 2 stacks of 3 treasure tokens in those slots. You also want to make sure that you put the monster miniature in the matching layer. So the quick side note, the Legendary Edition does have a set of monsters that you can choose from, so just pick 1 out of the 2. And then you can also, for some flair, add in some sound bases that are attached to the bottom of each mini. Then draw 5 magic cards for each player. Put an orb on each element that you'll be using in the game on the scoreboard at the tip of each corresponding element track, and then 2 more orbs on the glory track. And last thing, right now you have 1 out of 6 scoring markers on the victory point track. You're going to leave 1 scoring marker in your player tray, and with the remaining 4, put 1 on the first space of your corresponding element. Now the first space has a number 2 on it, and put the other 3 on the scoring board just to the side for now. And that is the setup. So practically everything that you do in Eldervale is tied to elemental power that's shown on your scoring board. Your ultimate goal is to, yes, score the most victory points, but there are a ton of ways to do that. Battling other players, battling monsters, gaining resources by visiting different realms and ruins, using those resources to build your houses, aka dwellings, and those are just some of the many things that you'll be doing in this game. Endgame, however, is triggered once a player reveals the final tile from the realm stack, or the second endgame condition is once a player builds their 6th dwelling. Then you're going to total all your points. I want you to keep this in mind because we're going to be talking about this throughout the whole tutorial. You're going to total your entire set of points from orbs, from elemental power, from dwellings, from adventure cards, from vault cards, and from prophecy cards. So try to keep those 6 factors in the back of your mind while you are learning to play, so you have that set focus for the end goal. Now that leads us to the biggest question of the day today, and that is, how do we play the Dwellings of Eldervale? Well, on your turn, you have 1 out of 2 actions to choose from. The first one is you're going to place a unit from your ready area onto a realm of Eldervale. Now, if you don't have any units on Eldervale, just like how we're beginning, we don't have any units anywhere aside from our player space, then you can place your unit on an unoccupied realm, so realm with no monsters or no other units. This is called first placement. But first placement can happen throughout the entire game, not just in the beginning. However, on the flip side of that coin, if you happen to already have units in Eldervale, then regardless of where they are, you have to put your next unit adjacent to that occupied realm. Again, that new unit has to go in a realm that is unoccupied. Now for the more fun units, the stronger units, these have special rules for placement. You can place them according to the rules that we just talked about, or they can also use their special abilities. Now here are all of their unique abilities that they have on top of the unique ones depending on your player board that you chose. Dragons, they're going to take flight, so they can be placed up to 2 realms away from one of your units. Wizards, they have teleport, which allows them to be placed in any unoccupied realm in Eldervale. And warriors have aggression, so if you have no other units in Eldervale, they can actually be placed in any occupied realm, and that will count as their first placement. So that's the first action, which is placing your unit. Now, depending on where you put your unit, it's going to trigger a realm action. If you put your unit on an elemental realm, then you're going to look through one of these stacks of treasure tokens and put them in your player tray. If that realm is empty, you can just receive the depicted resource on that realm. So that's one category of tiles, it's the elemental realms. The other category of tiles are your ruins. So if you put your unit in a ruin, there's actually a special action for each one. Let's go over them one by one. Number 1 is the Mage Tower. The Mage Tower allows you to spend any 2 resources, they don't have to be the same type, in order to draw 3 cards from the magic deck and add them to your hand. Then you want to pick a card from your hand and put it in the discard pile. Number 2 is the Summoning Portal. Putting a unit here in the Summoning Portal lets you pay the cost that is shown on your starter card, and you also get to move a unit to your ready area because of that. That's how you're going to get units off your player tray and onto your ready area. So once they are activated, they can be used for the rest of the game. Number 3 is the Mill, and that lets you build a dwelling. All you have to do is pick a worker that is in an elemental realm that doesn't already have a dwelling, and then pay the listed cost on that tile. In order to convert that worker into a dwelling, we'll talk about dwellings in full a little bit later. The fortress is simple. You can pay any 2 resources in order to gain 2 gold. And lastly, number 5 is the dungeon. If you place a unit here, it lets you A, expand Eldervale, and B, gain 1 or 2 adventure cards. So basically, these 5 areas answers the question, where do I get this blank resource? Oh, I need magic cards. I'll put a unit on the Mage Tower. Oh, how do I get more workers in my ready area? Summoning Portal. Wait, I want to construct a dwelling, the Mill. Well, what if I want to convert some resources into gold? Which, by the way, gold is a wild resource. Put your unit in the fortress. Oh, how do I add more tiles though to the map? Or how do I get adventure cards in the dungeon tray? Send your unit to the dungeon. Now speaking of dungeon, it is a little bit more involved than the other tiles. Now when you're using a dungeon ruin, you have to perform 4 steps. First, you have to discover a new realm by revealing the top tile on the realm stack, and then you can put that tile anywhere along the edge of Eldervale. You just have to make sure that it's at least adjacent to 2 realms, and then of course load it up with the proper tokens and or monsters. That's if you happen to draw a lair. Secondly, you get to pick 1 face-up adventure card from the dungeon tray and then pay its indicated resource. This then gets moved in front of you or to what the game calls your tableau. On the elemental track, now you get to increase the cards matching elemental power by 1. Third, you can get another adventure card the same way by picking up another face-up card and paying its cost, or you can also choose a face-up adventure card and discard it face down to the bottom of that adventure deck. And lastly, this is important because I actually missed this the first time around. Now you're going to reveal new cards from the appropriate decks to replace the card or cards that were removed. Now this means you can't buy from the same deck twice on the same turn, and you can only grab face-up cards. And all cards in the stack are face down, except the very first doorway card that we set up in the very beginning. Okay, so first action, put your unit on a tile. If it's an elemental tile, gain 1 treasure from 1 stack. If it's one of the 5 ruins, follow the special action that I mentioned earlier, depending on whether it was a Mage Tower or mill or so on. Keep it simple. Now let's move on to the second action you can choose, which is to regroup. When you regroup, it has to be done in 4 steps in this order. 1, you can pick your units in Eldervale and place it either on one of your card actions to perform that action, or you can also put them directly in your ready area. You cannot choose an action card that already has a unit on it, but you can perform card actions in any order that you choose. We're gonna go over card actions right after this. Step 2, take all of your units in the underworld and put them in the ready area. Now, these units can't perform any card actions. Again, we'll cover the underworld right after this. Step 3, take each of your units that you put on your cards and return them to your ready area. Step 4 only occurs if you're playing with the alternate mercenary game mode, and we're just focusing on the base game today, so don't worry about step 4 for now. So I mentioned that for your first regroup step, you can put a unit on one of your card actions. Well, now the question is, what is a card action? When you're using your starter card, which is the one that you began with, or an adventure card, the one you got when you place your unit in a dungeon, those cards are going to list a unit cost. If it shows a worker symbol, then that means you can use any unit in order to perform that action. Dragon, wizard, warrior, doesn't matter. And then you go about resolving the effects of your adventure cards one at a time. You can also perform many actions on your one regroup turn. So let's look at starter cards. You see here that there are 3 different actions listed. If you use one action, you can still use the others. As a side note, your starter card can never be destroyed, discarded, or used by your enemy, arch nemesis, villain. What's the word I'm looking for in competitive board gaming? Like, for real enemies. For real enemies, that's the one. I always forget that one. You're also going to run into these adventure cards called aura adventure cards, and those let you attach it to different cards. You cannot attach an aura card to a starter card. So the summon action actually works the same way as a summoning portal. You just pay whatever cost is listed here, and then you're going to move your unit to your ready area. So this is how you can actually summon stronger units. Now, gather lets you gain a resource, but the resource is different across factions. This outline here also means that you can upgrade your starter card gather slot, and that also means that when you gain a treasure token, you can use that treasure token in order to slot it in here, just like this. So now when you gain a new resource, it'll actually be the new treasure resource that you just gained. And the third action on your starter card is Dwell, where you can use one of your workers that's already on an elemental realm to convert them into a dwelling. So here's the ultimate goal of the game and one of the endgame conditions, and that is to construct a dwelling. Now you can construct one by either placing your unit on either a mill or using the Dwell worker action on your starter card. Then you want to follow these steps. First, pick an elemental realm that is occupied by one of your workers that doesn't already contain a dwelling. Then you want to pay the dwelling cost that is listed on your realm. Take a rooftop from your player tray on the left side and then place it on top of your chosen worker so your unit is officially a dwelling and not a unit. And then you score victory points. So for each ruin that's adjacent to your new dwelling, you get 2 victory points. For each dwelling that is adjacent to the new dwelling, you also get 2 victory points. And lastly, you gain elemental power depending on where you built your dwelling. Make sure that you also check the symbol on top of the realm, which is called a sigil. Some realms will have 2 sigils, so that means that you can move up 2 spaces on that elemental track. Now, dwellings are super powerful because they are permanent, they give you extra dice while you're battling, and they even give you bonus victory points in the end. Now, all of that was part of the second action, regroup. So let's move on to your free actions. Placing a unit or to regroup, those are mandatory actions. You have to perform 1 out of 2 of those. But for free actions, you can actually perform however many free actions you want. They can also be used before other actions, between other actions, and even after other actions. There are 4 of them for the base game. Number 1, you can discard a treasure token from your tray in order to gain that resource. Magic cards do count as resources. And you cannot perform this free action using treasure tokens that have already been slotted in your Tableau. This is the only free action that you can perform at any time, even while resolving other effects or on another player's turn. Number 2, you can slot a treasure token in your Tableau. Just make sure that if there already is a token in one of your slots, you have to discard that previously slotted token before putting in the new token. and you can't move a token once it has been slotted. Number 3, play a magic card. Now you have 3 types of magic cards. Spells have this symbol, and they can only be played at a certain time that is detailed on the card once the condition is met. So for instance, on this Fairy Charm spell, this spell can actually be used on another player's turn if they started battling with you. And of course, the spell card would kick in immediately, preventing that battle from happening. Some spells, like the Liquid Form, also have a casting cost right near the top of the card. If you meet the minimum elemental power requirement, that's the one on the right of the slash over here, so at least 1 level in water, then you're allowed to use it. If not, you'll have to pay the resource that's shown on the left of the slash. Now you can see that this is one benefit of upgrading your elemental track. See that? So things are piecing together here. Now to add on to magic cards, you also have quests, which are shown with this sailboat symbol. Quests will give you victory points during the game once a special condition is met, and you also get those victory points right away. Now these quests are not discarded, you actually keep these quests, just keep them tucked under your board. The last type of magic cards are prophecies. Now just like an actual prophecy, kind of, they won't have any function until the end of the game. So once you start scoring, each player is going to reveal all their prophecy cards in order to gain victory points based on the conditions stated. Okay, so spells, quests, prophecies, those are the 3 types of magic cards, and you can play a magic card as part of your free action. Number 4 is to perform an orb action. So what does that mean? Well, we have 4 ways that you can use orbs, and you can pick one of those ways to use them. You can take 1 orb from your supply and put it on any open reward space that's on the scoreboard. Once you place your orb there and gain that reward, it is going to be permanently stuck there so no one else can use it. 2, you can slot an orb as a Tableau input. That means that some adventure cards will show a marked circle inside a box near the bottom of the card. That means that an orb can be slotted there. Number 3, you can actually slot an orb to empower a Tableau card because some adventure cards at the top will have a symbol for it in the left corner. The bottom of the card will have bolded text telling you what happens when you empower that adventure card. Now just so you are aware, there are 2 other free actions, but they do deal with the add-ons like with mercenaries and tactic tokens. But again, we are just focusing on the base game. Okay, so just like any other adventure that you embark on, you're gonna be making progress, visiting different areas, and you're gonna need a way to kind of record all that. Now that's kind of the function of your adventure card Tableau. I have been mentioning this throughout the entire video, but what is it? What is the adventure card Tableau? It is your starter card and any other adventure card that you've collected that you put right in front of you. We know that the starter card has a sigil on the top left, but adventure cards will also show you a sigil at the top right of that card. Now that tells you which elemental path to upgrade on the track. Some cards also have slots where you can put treasure tokens in them face up. You cannot use a card action if the slot is empty, so you have to fill it with a treasure token or with an orb first. Now just an FYI, when you put an orb in an input slot, the cost is defined as 0. Now that means that you can use the ability without paying any resources. And also, like I mentioned earlier, some cards also have an orb to the top left, and that allows you to empower the card, or some just act as a requirement to use the card. You will also notice that on the banner of some cards, it shows a symbol. This symbol here is the doorway card. Since it's the first card that you get in the dungeon, the benefit to getting them first is if you're the highest on that elemental track, you'll get bonus resources like if you're using Luminous Threshold, you get 1 scroll, but if you are the highest in light with a token slotted in, then you also get 2 potions on top of that. Vaults, shown with this symbol here, give you extra victory points at the end of the game for having slotted tokens and resources. And auras are used to attach cards to your tableau as a free action. Now, in case you're wondering, you do not have to use this attachment effect immediately though, and you can hold on to it. Auras can also only be attached to a card that may be activated by a regrouping unit. Now, each Tableau card can only have 1 aura attached, and once they are attached, then they can't be removed unless that card has been discarded. Or you can also pay the aura's cost in order to move it to another Tableau card. So for example, here I'm attaching the Chaotic Aura to the Citadel card. When I regroup a warrior here, I advance on the glory track once, but with this aura, I can actually roll dice. It'll give me a chance at doubling that advancement on the glory track. Okay, we have 3 more things to talk about: battle, elemental power, and monsters, and then we're gonna get straight into endgame. Hang in with me. So battles don't get started until each player has regrouped at least 1 time. It starts when you put a unit in a realm that has been occupied by an opponent's unit, or a monster. Battles can include any number of players. It can also include any number of units, and it can also include monsters as well. They're also only after you take an action. So if you place your unit in a realm with an enemy player, you'll have to carry out whatever actions first, and then battle happens afterwards. And here's how battle works. First, any adjacent units can join the battle, starting first with the player to the left of the active player, and ending with the active player. Everyone gets a chance to make this decision one time. You cannot add more units later on, so choose wisely. Then you determine battle dice according to the amount of units that you have. So if you have a dragon in that realm, you get 3 battle dice. Monsters get dice according to their listed battle value, and dwellings don't count in a battle, but they do give you 1 extra die if they are in the same realm of the battle, and you also get 1 additional die for each adjacent dwelling. Thirdly, now you can spend swords to get more dice, again beginning with the player to the left of the active player. They declare something like, I would like to spend 1 sword, so they get 1 extra die during battle. Oh wait, what's the maximum amount of dice that you can have during battle? 6. I know you're wondering, so I'm gonna have 6. Here they are. If you have spells or abilities that give you extra dice, now is the time to do so. Step 4, you roll them, and if a monster is involved, anyone can roll for the monster. Now to figure out who the winner is, you only compare the single highest die. If there is a tie, now the rest of the dice come in play. So you repeat the comparison until a winner is found. And if there is a true tie, then all players will lose and monsters will remain. And the final question that I am sure you have, what is the whole point of battling? Well, the winner actually gets to advance on the glory track, and they also collect the indicated reward. So about the glory track, the very first time that you regroup, you can move your scoring marker on the leftmost space of the glory track. You can't gain glory anytime before that, so all players have to regroup at least 1 time and ergo move their scoring marker onto the glory track before battles can take place. Now once you reach the final space of the glory track, you can still gain glory, but you just leave your scoring marker there, and instead you're going to gain 2 victory points for the reward each time that you gain it past the 8th space. If you are fighting a monster and it was defeated in battle, the winning player instead has an option. They can either gain glory, or they can also gain elemental power and move up 1 space on the elemental track that matches the monster that was defeated. Full coverage on monsters in a bit. Okay, so battle is over. If you are the losing player, you move all your units from Eldervale to the underworld. Defeated monsters are removed from Eldervale, and each unit that you placed in the underworld for any reason nets you 1 sword. But remember, the good thing is in step 2 of regroup, you can actually bring your units back. So here's a quick recap of battle. You put your unit in a realm that's occupied by someone else or by a monster. Bam, battle's triggered. And then that player to the left of the active player can start recruiting more adjacent units to join that battle. Now this keeps going in a circle until everyone, including the active player, is done recruiting units from their adjacent realms. Then you get battle dice according to this chart. You can spend swords to get more dice if you want to, but remember that the maximum is 6 dice for a single player. You roll them, single out the highest die 1 at a time, the highest number wins, and the winner gets to advance on the glory track, assuming everyone has already regrouped at least once in order to get their scoring track on the glory track to begin with. If a monster was involved and was defeated, the winner gets a choice between either gaining glory or gaining a step on the elemental track. Finally, after everyone is done, you take your units and put them in the underworld. Now next up is elemental power. We've been talking about this throughout the entire video, and you are almost ready to play. Hang in there. Let me tell you about elemental power. So when you start, one of these markers begins on the very first space of the elemental power track, and that matches the faction that you have. The rest are not on tracks just yet. So every time that you gain elemental power, that's when you move the marker 1 space. Now this is more so for 3 or 4 players, but you are limited to 4 elemental power markers. So if you happen to run out of markers and you gain a power in a new element, if you're playing with more than 2 players, you're going to move one of your previously placed markers to the first space of your newly gained element. Or you can also just ignore that elemental power gain to begin with. Now remember that you gain elemental power each time that you get a new adventure card, or if you build a dwelling, and your power cannot decrease even if you lose an adventure card. Only the first person to reach the top of the track will get the orb. If you happen to gain more power in that element afterwards, nothing's going to happen, but the benefit from reaching the top, aside from getting the orb, is that you also score the maximum amount of victory points, which is 5, at the end of the game. And let's talk about monsters. So monsters appear every time a lair tile has been revealed from placing units in the dungeon. If you place a unit in a realm that is adjacent to a monster, monsters are going to rush into that space that you just played, and then that's going to trigger a battle. But that only occurs after the world has been deemed peaceful from everyone taking their regroup action. If you happen to be next to 2 adjacent monsters, you can pick one to rush into your realm. All monsters will also have a card that lists their ability at the top. Again, their abilities, monsters rushing into realms and battling monsters, all that doesn't occur until you have the peaceful beginning. The bottom left of the card is what you gain if you defeat a monster and is the battle reward. The bottom right is the battle value, how much dice they get when you're battling them. If you defeat a monster, it gets put to the side and it won't return for the rest of the game unless a game effect allows you to return a monster back to its lair. If that lair you're returning the monster to has units, then those units will get sent to the underworld. And if that lair already has a monster, then that existing monster gets moved to the nearest unoccupied realms chosen by the active player. And if there are no unoccupied realms, then that monster is destroyed. Now the last thing about monsters, some effects will allow you to dominate a monster. When this happens, put the monster's card in your tableau and then take the monster's mini and put it in your ready area. It no longer follows the rush rules, but all of its abilities are still in effect. If the ability has a chain symbol, then that means it's only useful to the dominated monster's owner. If the ability says while in Eldervale, then that means that the monster has to be in a realm and not in your ready area. And if your monster gets sent to the underworld, then the domination is over and the monster card and the mini are put with the other destroyed monsters. Finally, here we are at Endgame. So there are 2 ways to end the game. The first player to construct their 6th dwelling will trigger Endgame. And the second condition is when one player draws the final realm tile. Now after that, each player takes 1 more turn, including the player who triggered Endgame. And here are the final 6 steps to scoring. 1. Each unspent orb that you have is worth 1 victory point. 2. Each elemental power marker's position, tally those up for each marker. 3. Each dwelling's victory points are determined by your position on the elemental power track that matches the realm where the dwelling is located. So if I have a dwelling in a water realm and my tracker is at 5, then I get 5 points for that. Number 4 are the Tableau cards. You get victory points for each card and their matching position on the elemental power track. So if I have this order card and my tracker is on 4 on order, then I get 4 points. However, you can only score up to 3 adventure cards per dwelling that you've built, and that goes for any element. Number 5 are vault cards, so just go ahead and check to see what those detail and include them in. And lastly, number 6 are prophecy cards. Now in current score order, from least to highest, players are going to reveal the prophecy cards in their hands. And that is game. Highest score wins. If there is a tie, use the number of resources remaining as a tiebreaker, including magic cards. For double ties, you can share the title of Ruler of Eldervale. And that, my friends, is how you play the Dwellings of Eldervale. Now, I hope you all enjoyed that tutorial. I tried to simplify it as much as I can and condense it as much as I can as well. Hopefully it got you up and running to play this game as fast as possible and as efficient and as accurately as possible as well. With that, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all in the next video.